The fear of love, a destructive paradox. It is true that love is considered one of the most beautiful things in a person's life, but it can also be one of the most frightening. Relationships can be trying and traumatic, which can trigger a fear of entering into a new relationship. This fear can be so intense that it causes some people to hide their feelings or sabotage their own happiness. They engage in avoidance behavior and tend to make irrational decisions. They may also have limiting beliefs that prevent them from living their love life in a fulfilling way. Working through this fear can be a long process, requiring deep introspection to understand the roots of this fear and work to overcome them. It is important to free oneself from these fears in order to allow oneself to experience healthy and fulfilling relationships. Ultimately, the paradox of fear of love can be destructive to one's relationships and personal life. That's why it's essential to take the time to do some self-work to open up to love without fear and without limits.
The 4 invaluable virtues of Buddhism. Buddhism is a religion and philosophy that advocates peace, love, wisdom and compassion for all living beings. At the heart of this Buddhist doctrine are the 4 inestimable virtues, also known as the Brahma-viharas. These are Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha. Maitri is kindness or benevolence to oneself and to others. It means to be kind and benevolent to everyone you meet, whether they are friends or enemies. Karuna, on the other hand, is compassion. It consists of feeling the pain and suffering of others, seeking relief and wanting to help them. In Buddhism, compassion for living beings is of paramount importance. Mudita is joy and happiness. This virtue is manifested when one sincerely rejoices for the happiness and success of others. It is a virtue that also involves the absence of jealousy and envy. Finally, Upeksha is contemplation and freedom. This virtue involves not being attached to phenomena, whether pleasant or unpleasant. Upeksha simply means stepping back from life and learning to see it from a different perspective. In sum, the 4 inestimable virtues are a fundamental step in the practice of Buddhism. They allow one to have a correct view of things and to develop human qualities such as kindness, compassion, joy and wisdom.
The halo effect, a cognitive trap that deceives our judgment. The halo effect is a cognitive bias frequently observed in our current society where television, social networks, and the media occupy an important place. Indeed, in this phenomenon, the brain is deceived by information that is presented as important when in reality it is not. This can happen, for example, when we associate what is happening on television with something really important. We thus give exaggerated importance to the news on television, to the detriment of the events that are taking place around us. Another example of the halo effect is the uniform fantasy. That is, we are trained to value people who wear a uniform, policeman, military, doctor, by automatically associating them with an authority or a competence. We are therefore led to trust them more, without taking the time to reflect on their real competence or their ability to solve complex situations. In conclusion, the halo effect can mislead our judgment and blind us to reality. It is important to take a step back from the information we receive in order to evaluate its relevance, and not to be led into false or manipulative beliefs.
The illumination of the self through Ovid's Metamorphosis. In this piece, our fellow Amourologist invites us to discover his new YouTube channel focused on self-love. He uses the myth of Narcissus, described as sleep by self-love, to help us explore and accept all the facets of our personality. Indeed, the myth of Narcissus is a perfect example of how self-love can descend into self-obsession. However, our fellow loveologist uses Ovid's version to show us how this obsession can be transformed into self-enlightenment when we are willing to look at ourselves honestly and accept all aspects of our personality, even those we consider negative. By integrating all our facets, we become more complete and free ourselves from projections and judgments about ourselves. This metamorphosis allows us to take our place in the world and to be in harmony with ourselves and others. I conclude by evoking the bedridden person, who can think like a bird and transform himself in spite of the ordeals, by accepting all the facets of his personality. In short, I invite us to explore Ovid's Metamorphosis and to discover our colleague's YouTube channel for a positive rediscovery of ourselves. The discovery of simple pleasure. When you discover your first package of M&Ms at the age of 20, it may seem trivial to some. But for me, it was an unforgettable experience, coming from an authoritarian country where emotions dictate our choices. I remember opening the colorful bag with excitement, discovering the little chocolate balls that seemed to glow with light. I immediately slipped a handful of M&Ms into my mouth and was overcome by a wave of new sensations. Their sweet, crunchy taste made me smile and feel alive. This moment was more than just a candy discovery, it was a realization. For the first time, I realized that I had the power to choose how I wanted to feel. Instead of being overwhelmed by my emotions, I could channel my dreams, plans and desires like a child. Since that day, I have cultivated a more conscious approach to my choices and my life. I always remember that discovery of M&Ms as a symbol of simple joy and fun in life. Sometimes we have to go back to basics to find our way.
The discovery of the authentic being. I above transports us to a deep reflection on our real identity, well beyond what we believe to be. It brings to the forefront the part of peace, light and love that exists within us, but that we sometimes have difficulty defining and expressing. The author invites the reader to free himself from the limits he instinctively puts on himself and to explore his authentic being, letting himself be guided by these positive emotions. This may require some self-awareness work, but also a questioning of the preconceived ideas we may have about ourselves. It is time for each of us to discover ourselves as we really are, in all our inner beauty, to finally radiate this positive energy around us and in the world.
The divine beauty of the Venus de Milo statue. Beauty is a spiritual quality that transcends all forms of criticism. The famous statue of the Venus de Milo is a perfect example of this divine beauty. Although she is depicted without arms, she perfectly embodies the goddess Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love in Greek mythology. The Venus de Milo, which was discovered on the island of Milos in Greece in 1820, is considered one of the most famous works of art in the ancient world. It was created during the Hellenistic period, which was a time of great artistic and cultural creativity. This statue is a representation of female perfection. Its divine beauty is preserved by its elegant curves, imposing stature and slender posture. The statue embodies the perfection of the human form, and exudes a subtle charm that cannot be imitated. The absence of arms has given rise to many theories as to the artist's intentions, but this has not stopped the Venus de Milo from becoming one of the most eloquent symbols of beauty and perfection. It has influenced many artists throughout the history of art, and continues to fascinate the world to this day. In short, the Venus de Milo is a perfect representation of divine beauty, transcending time, cultures and generations. Her undeniably powerful and elegant presence still inspires artists around the world today.
The duality of desire, selfishness and glorification. Desire is a powerful force that emanates from our inner being and drives us to seek to satisfy our needs or desires. However, this powerful force is not always positive, as it can sometimes make us selfish and focus only on ourselves. Indeed, desire is inherently selfish. It draws its strength from the need it creates within us, without regard to the needs of others or the consequences on those around us. However, desire can also be a source of pleasure, because nothing is more rewarding than to feel desired. It gives us a double glorification, on the one hand by the idealization of the love we bear and on the other hand by the satisfaction of our own needs. This creates a feeling of accomplishment that can be very gratifying for our ego. However, the influence of desire can also make us create lusts and desires for things or people that do not belong to us. This is when our preferences override our reasoning, creating dissonance in our possessions. We then enter a spiral of infinite desire, condemned to seek more and more, without ever being satisfied. Ultimately, desire is a double-edged force. On the one hand, it can create a sense of satisfaction and self-worth, while on the other, it can lead to selfishness and covetousness. It is up to each of us to find a balance between these two sides of our personality, keeping in mind that the needs of others and the consequences of our actions are just as important as our own desires.
The duality of emotions. I raise an interesting question. How can one feel sadness in a positive environment where joy is shared like bread, and where the success of one individual is a victory for all? This duality of emotions is often present in our lives, and it can be difficult to manage. One might ask how it is possible to feel sad in the context of joy and harmony. Yet sometimes, even when everything is going well, our hearts are heavy and we feel sadness, anxiety, or frustration. The author also mentions the Tibetan teaching that the subtle heart is located on the right side. This information may seem trivial, but it reinforces the idea that our emotions are not always rational, and that they can be influenced by external factors. In sum, I invite us to reflect on the complexity of human emotions and their ability to coexist despite seemingly contradictory circumstances.
The duality of dreams, between desire and fear. The dream is an expression of our hope, a way to project ourselves into a better future. However, it can be held back by two major blocks, fear and disenchantment. The first blockage lies between desire and fear. The dream is often associated with a deep desire, but the fear of failure or ridicule can hinder its realization. This fear is often linked to past experiences or limiting beliefs. However, it is by facing these fears that we can unleash our potential and realize our wildest dreams. The second blockage is doubt. There comes a time when we lose hope in our dreams. We start to believe that it is no longer possible, that we no longer have the means or the skills to achieve them. In this perspective, we cut ourselves off from hope and the right to dream in color. However, it is important to never give up on our dreams, to continue to believe in them and to work hard to achieve them. In short, the duality of dreaming involves freeing ourselves from our fears and believing in ourselves, despite the obstacles. It is by overcoming these blocks that we can accomplish our dreams and live the life we really want.
The dynamics of love. Freedom from modesty may seem difficult for some, but it is a dream come true. When we are able to express our love without the fear of judgment, we give impetus to a yang movement. So when we give love, we create a dynamic of movement that spreads and radiates around us. On the other hand, receiving love is a yin quality. It is not a movement, but it allows us to nourish our inner being. When we receive love, we are able to welcome this positive energy that can help us feel better about ourselves. If we look at this dynamic from this perspective, we can better understand the interdependence of these two aspects. We need to both give and receive love. This shows that we all need to be initiated into the exchange of love. We also need to be ready to circulate this positive energy around us. In short, the dynamic of love is a perpetual movement that can improve our lives and the lives of those around us. If we are able to open ourselves to give and receive love, we have the ability to transform our lives for the better.
The effectiveness of the song Heart to Heart for deep introspection. This piece of music was specifically designed to draw the listener into deep introspection, to help them reconnect with their own source. The title Heart to Heart suggests a direct contact with one's own essence. To optimize the experience, it is recommended to listen to this track without visualization. This allows the imagination and spontaneous feelings to flow freely. The effect of this piece is amplified by the fact that the reception of the music is done through the body's water. The absence of visual solicitation optimizes this reception. In short, Heart to Heart is an effective piece to reach a deep introspection. It accompanies each one towards the depths of himself and helps him to reconnect with his most intimate emotions.
The ego and its consequences on our well-being. In this text, the author evokes the idea that the ego represents an image we have of ourselves, a kind of mental construction that we maintain. However, when we become too attached to this image, it can have negative consequences on our well-being. By trying to please others or to be right, we feed our ego to the detriment of our emotional and physical health. The wounds we have can then persist, whether they were caused by past events or current situations. I therefore stress the importance of taking care of ourselves by taking a step back from our image, learning not to take everything personally and working on our self-esteem.
The emotional taboo in love intimacy. Intimacy is a subject often surrounded by emotional taboos that can limit the progress of the relationship. This taboo may be due to previous love traumas or simply a fear of vulnerability. Love itself can be experienced too intensely or too quietly, as if the emotion alternates between hot and cold. In medicine, the sensation of hot or cold is used to regulate the passion of love. However, in order to regulate intimacy, one must seek to explore the inner relationship. It is important to understand that commitment to love is often based on the need for security. To work on regulating intimacy and self-confidence, it is essential to work on body awareness. By understanding and expressing one's emotions, one can overcome the emotional taboo and improve the positive evolution of the love relationship. The equality in seduction, a gender experience. I evoke the experience of a woman pretending to be a man in the context of seduction. This experience underlines that, contrary to cliches, women are not the only ones who have to make the effort to seduce. Men are also likely to experience the same difficulties. The author also points out that, in this experiment, men and women are on an equal footing when it comes to seduction. This demonstrates the evolution of gender mores, where the role of gender in seduction is no longer as clear-cut as it once was. In conclusion, this experiment teaches us that men and women are equal when it comes to seduction and that it is time to revise the gender stereotypes that are detrimental to gender equality.
The evolution of love and provocative art. I discuss the paradox between the biblical story of original sin and the way humans begin their encounters today by getting to know each other. He points out that despite religious teachings on knowledge and prohibition, human beings have evolved in the way they meet and bond. The main idea of the text is that love is constantly evolving. The prohibitions of the past around love and sexuality have given way to a greater acceptance of self, other and diversity. Today's encounters are made through the knowledge of the other, of his thoughts and aspirations. I also put forward the progression of art, which can still shock today by provoking desire. Artists, through their work, have managed to transgress certain limits to express their vision and creativity. This evolution of art reflects the evolution of our society and our mentalities. In sum, the article reflects a reflection on the evolutions of the current love relationships and mentalities in comparison with the religious teachings, and on the way in which art can reflect these evolutions by provoking and transgressing the social standards.
The evolution of morals and its impact on our perception of love. Our society is constantly evolving, and this impacts all aspects of our lives, including our perception of love. Over the years, the codes of love have evolved, and this has finally frozen our way of seeing the concept of love. However, despite these changes, the old romance still has a place in the hearts of many people. The romance that once excited the masses is now seen as a dreamy ideal, even though it is still present in the collective imagination. However, there is a certain type of love that resists these evolutions, that of youth, which feeds on the unknown and first times. This love, which emerges from the discovery of the other and the exploration of the unknown, can often remain intact even in spite of changes in society. In sum, changing mores have profoundly impacted our vision of love, but certain types of love remain unchanged. This phenomenon can be seen across generations, but love always remains a strong and universal feeling, even if its perception varies according to the times.
The evolution of social codes through the Olympic Games. Human beings have built an image of themselves over the centuries, shaping their identity and role in society. But in this day and age, where gender blends and social norms are challenged, how do the codes evolve? This is a fascinating story that plunges us into the subconscious mores and values of our society. The Olympic Games are a fascinating example of these changes. Since their creation in 776 BC, these sports competitions have evolved along with society. At first, only men were allowed to participate, but today women are also allowed to compete in all disciplines. Similarly, homosexuality and diversity are increasingly accepted in the teams, reflecting an evolution of mentalities in society. However, some age-old traditions still remain, such as the fact that athletes can only advance holding their country's flag if they are dressed in accordance with their gender codes. While this may seem anachronistic and outdated to some, it shows how important gender identity remains in today's society, and that acceptance of these differences will take time. Ultimately, The Olympics are a reflection of the changing social norms and values of our society. They show us that changing mindsets and attitudes towards differences is a slow but necessary process to create a more just and equitable society.
The evolution of the conception of love in spirituality. In the past, religion has often presented love as a moral virtue that allows one to become a better person. Love was often associated with the fear of divine punishment for transgressing moral commandments. This view of love, although widespread, was rather limited because it did not allow for true personal growth. However, over time, the concept of love in spirituality has evolved. Increasingly, religious teachings have emphasized unconditional love, leading the faithful to free themselves from old limiting beliefs. Spirituality such as Buddhism, Sufism, mystical Judaism and mystical Christianity have explored deeper notions of love, linking them to the search for transcendence and union with the divine. Today, more and more people are seeking to integrate this understanding of love into their daily lives, practicing kindness, compassion and empathy for themselves and others. For these individuals, spirituality is no longer so much a matter of doctrine or dogma, but rather an approach to life that fosters personal growth and connection with others and the universe as a whole.
The fires of passion. Passion is an intense emotion that can be likened to the fires of love. It is often associated with an overflowing enthusiasm, a powerful energy that takes possession of us and pushes us to act with an unfailing determination. From a psychological point of view, passion can be seen as a manifestation of our deepest desires, an expression of our authentic nature. It can be seen as a source of creativity and inspiration. When we are passionate, our hearts are open and we naturally share this warmth with those around us. We are willing to give selflessly and invest fully in what drives us. Passion can take many forms. It can be related to a professional activity, a love relationship, a cause we care about, or an artistic passion. Whatever its form, it brings us a sense of deep satisfaction and invites us to explore our limits, to push our own boundaries. The fires of passion can be a source of happiness and fulfillment, but they can also be devastating if left unchecked. It is important to find the right balance between the intensity of our emotions and our ability to manage them. In short, passion is a powerful engine that can help us achieve our full potential, but it also requires some form of control so as not to consume us. It is an expression of our vitality and creativity, a force that can take us to unsuspected heights.
The first kiss, a delicate moment not to be taken lightly. The first kiss is a unique and emotionally charged moment. It is an important step in a romantic relationship, and it is important to take the time to prepare it well. Indeed, it is essential to find the right moment, the right place, and to have a good understanding with your partner. It is important not to rush things, because the magic of romance lies in waiting. It is therefore recommended not to force the situation, and to wait for the right moment to start. The key moments can be a sunset on a beach, a romantic candlelight dinner, a privileged moment together in a place you like. Timing is an essential element in the success of the first kiss. It is important to know how to read the signals sent by your partner, so as not to rush things or, on the contrary, not to miss the ideal moment. It is also important to talk to your partner before you start, in order to know if the moment is right or if it is better to postpone the kiss a little. In short, the first kiss is an important moment that should not be rushed. It is important to take your time to find the right moment, the right place, and to communicate with your partner to succeed in this delicate passage in a harmonious way. The first kiss can be a fantastic, magical, and unforgettable moment, so make the most of it.
The forgotten experience of love. Love is an often forgotten experience in our lives. We focus on our judgments, our rational considerations, our preferences, and we forget the essence of this experience. We forget that love is simply lived, little by little, through a deep connection with the other. It is important to remember that love is not only about beauty, wealth, or success. Love is a deep and complex human experience that transcends all these ephemeral notions. It is time to return to this experience, to rediscover it in all its simplicity and beauty. Let's learn to really connect with the people we love, to listen to them, understand them, support them. Love is not a product that we buy or order, it is an experience that we live. Let us remember that love is a gift of self, an opening of the heart. Let us cultivate it in our lives, with the people we care about,
and we will discover all the richness that love can bring to our lives.
The foundations of a fulfilling and responsible relationship. In any relationship, whether it is a romantic, friendly or professional one, it is important to establish a solid foundation for it to last over time. Here are some key elements that can contribute to a fulfilling and responsible relationship. 1. Sign of mutual responsibility. Each person involved in the relationship must be aware of his or her share of responsibility, and be willing to assume it. This means being honest, transparent and making decisions with the other person in mind. 2. Accepting differences of opinion. Every human being is unique, with different opinions and beliefs. It is therefore essential to accept and respect different opinions in a relationship, without trying to impose them. 3. Exposing weaknesses. It may seem scary, but it is important to expose your weaknesses to the other person. This allows for greater mutual understanding, empathy and tolerance. 4. Shared serenity without forgetting each other. For the relationship to remain fulfilling, each person must find a balance between their personal needs and the fulfillment of the relationship. It is important to take care of oneself while respecting the other. 5. Mutual respect. A healthy relationship is based on mutual respect, meaning that each person respects the other's choices, opinions and feelings. 6. Compersion. In a relationship, it is important to take pleasure in the happiness of the other person, even if it does not directly concern us. This attitude can strengthen solidarity and satisfaction in the relationship. 7. Dare to do what is necessary to improve the quality of the relationship. In any relationship, there are ups and downs. It is important to be willing to work together to overcome the difficulties and improve the quality of the relationship. In summary, for a relationship to be fulfilling and responsible, it is essential to cultivate these qualities: responsibility, respect, acceptance, empathy, and compersion. By practicing these elements, you can create healthy, positive relationships that will last over time.
The foundations of love, forgiveness and detachment. Love is a complex and fascinating feeling that can take many forms. But where does it come from? What triggers this heartfelt impulse? According to some, the most important quality of love is forgiveness. When we forgive someone, we not only free that person from their wrongdoing, but we also gain our own freedom. In other words, we shed a weight that has prevented us from loving fully. This leads to one of the keys to authentic love, detachment. Of course, this does not mean being indifferent or disinterested. On the contrary, detachment involves letting things happen naturally, not being attached to specific expectations or a particular outcome. It is a state of mind that allows us to feel unconditional love, without suffering or feelings of lack. Ultimately, love is a choice we make every day. We can choose to forgive, detach, and open ourselves to love in all its glory. If you are interested in finding a more fulfilling love relationship, I recommend you read this article on the qualities of love. It will give you many tips and ideas to deepen your understanding of this unique and wonderful feeling.
The 4 Indian wisdoms apply to love life according to Sandrine Gouraud. In this text, Sandrine Gouraud shares with us her interpretation of the 4 Indian wisdoms, which she believes resonate perfectly with love life. The first wisdom, whoever you meet is the right person, means that every person we meet in our love life is important and has a role to play in our personal journey. Even if some relationships don't work out, they can teach us lessons and help us move forward. The second wisdom, what happens is the only thing that could happen, reminds us that all the experiences we have in our love life are inevitable and necessary for our personal evolution. So, rather than regretting our choices or looking back, it is important to focus on the present and what we can learn from our mistakes. The third wisdom, every moment is the right moment, is an invitation to let go of our expectations and projections, and to accept reality as it is. Instead of trying to control everything, it is important to let life take its course and seize opportunities as they arise. Finally, the fourth wisdom, what's over is over, reminds us that every love relationship has a limited duration and that it is important to know how to let go of what no longer suits us. Rather than clinging to toxic or outdated relationships, it is important to focus on the future and the new opportunities that come our way. By applying these 4 wisdoms to our love life, we are invited to focus on the present moment, to let go of our expectations and projections, and to accept both positive and negative experiences as part of our life path.
The fragility of physical attraction and its consequences on love. In this text, the author explores the fragility of physical attraction and how it can lead to freezing the desired qualities in a person. Indeed, physical beauty is ephemeral, and yet it is often the first source of attraction between 2 individuals. The author also discusses the concept of crystallization, which consists of freezing the desired qualities in a person, without taking into account his or her true character traits. This crystallization can lead to preconceived notions and unrealistic expectations of the person you love. In addition, the author talks about jealousy that can be self-perpetuating in a couple, reinforcing the fears and doubts of each person. Yet, love should be based on mutual trust, allowing each person to feel secure. Finally, the author emphasizes that love should not be based on physical appearance, but rather on the essence of the person, as the quintessence of his moral qualities and personality. True devotion to the loved one lies in valuing his or her inner qualities rather than his or her ephemeral physical beauty.
The freedom of love unites all differences. Love is what makes us free. It is the only truth that crosses all differences. Its power is immense and liberating. In a world of so many differences, there is nothing more precious than love to unite us all. Love is not just a feeling, it is an energy that flows freely between people and can transform everything. When we love, we experience wholeness, joy and peace. We rise above our fears and limitations. We become stronger and more resilient. We have the choice to be guided by love and live in harmony with all creatures, or to resist its power and create division. This is why love is our greatest freedom and our only choice. If we live in love, we do not need to judge or condemn. We recognize the beauty and intrinsic value of every human being regardless of color, religion or sexual orientation. We come together in the same light and energy that unites us all. Ultimately, the freedom of love is the only path to unity and peace in this world. It transcends all differences and allows us to rise as individuals and as a community. This is how we can create a world where love is the only truth and we are all free and united.
The fullness of life beyond immediate pleasure. I highlight the difference between life fully lived and life half lived. When one is fully alive, pleasure becomes optional, because one is already satisfied with life as it is. On the other hand, when one is not fully alive, pleasure tends to become more important, as it seems to be the only source of happiness. I also emphasize the idea that desire can create a projection that is only a shadow of real happiness. We must learn to be satisfied with what we have and not constantly seek to obtain more. Behind the lack is often the true source of abundance. It is by being content and contemplative that we can truly enjoy what life offers us. However, I also recognize that these principles are easier to state than to practice in everyday life, where we are always wanting. But it is a learning process, which begins with the realization that our vital needs must be met before we can strive for something greater. In short, I encourage focusing on the beauty of life and seeking contentment in the present moment, rather than chasing immediate pleasure.
The fullness of love. Love is a complex emotion that can be difficult to describe. However, one thing is certain, it is based on fullness. When we carry an inner peace that naturally fills us with joy, we want to share that happiness with those around us. The fullness of love can only be achieved when we are at peace with ourselves. This means having high self-confidence and self-esteem. When we are comfortable with who we are able to love selflessly and authentically. Love is not a competition, but rather a cooperation. It is a feeling that multiplies when shared with others. When we feel loved, we want to give love in return. This is how the fullness of love spreads and envelops us all. In conclusion, the fullness of love is a state of being that can be achieved by being at peace with oneself. It is a positive feeling that multiplies when we share it with others and can truly change our lives.
The fusion of beauty and danger. This text talks about the relationship between beauty and danger, and the need to take risks to live fully. The author suggests that beauty and danger are closely related, and that one cannot experience one without the other. To love fully, the ego must die, and one must be willing to take risks. The author also suggests that to live without one or the other is to live half-heartedly. They must be merged to create something that is more than the sum of its parts. The merging of beauty and danger creates something greater and deeper than the experience of each separately. Ultimately, this text represents a meditation on the need to take risks and open ourselves up to new experiences in our lives, even when it may be scary or uncertain. Beauty and danger are closely related, and we cannot experience one without the other. Real life begins where our comfort zone ends. The fusion of heart and mind. I speak of the relationship between our states of mind and spirit, and the merging of the heart and mind. When these two parts unite, our deepest self is lost in a state of tenderness with spiritual power. This union creates a fire that burns our memories of loving feelings. This state of union can only be achieved by working to align our thoughts and feelings. When these two parts are in harmony, they create a powerful synergy that allows for a deep inner transformation. I invite us to nurture this union by taking care of our emotions and thoughts, allowing our deepest self to express itself with love and wisdom. Ultimately, it is this state of fusion that allows us to access a higher form of consciousness, which allows us to find peace and inner balance.
The fusion of identity in love. In the most intense moments of love, we can lose sight of our own identity. We become so immersed in the relationship that our I melts into the we that we are. It is in this state of fusion that the true essence of love is revealed. This experience transcends the individual and gives rise to a collective perspective. But how do we reach this point? The secret lies in the bravery required to observe the other without filter, artifice, or prejudice. By doing so, we can finally see beyond our superficial differences and access the ultimate truth of unity. Thus, by dropping our masks and our worries, we reach a fullness through the ecstasy of shared love. It is in this fusion that individual identity becomes meaningless and we become the one and only truth.
The fusion of relationships through love and freedom. The merging of relationships is not something that is done lightly. It is the result of true and authentic love that is built over time. We are in relationship with everything around us, be it people, events, or emotions. In order to achieve a true merging of relationships, it is important to forgive the attachments that can hold us back or cause us pain. To be ready for love is to be ready to be free. It means that we are willing to share a part of ourselves with others without fear of being hurt or rejected. Relationship fusion is a state of being in which we are willing to give and receive love, affection, and attention. However, relationship fusion should not be confused with attachment. Attachment is a relationship in which the person feels unable to detach or separate from the other. It can be experienced as a strong dependency, a need for the other person's presence. Relationship fusion, on the other hand, is a union based on deep understanding and the ability to love each other enough to allow oneself to be free and independent while still being united with the other. In conclusion, the merging of relationships does not happen in a day, or even in a month. It takes time, patience, understanding, and love. It is a beautiful adventure full of discoveries and emotions that can lead us to a more satisfying and fulfilling life. The fusion of soul and spirit in the concept of the universal couple in evolutionary hypnosis. In the field of energetics, the concept of universal couple is recurrent. It refers to the fusion of our soul and our spirit, two elements often considered as inseparable in personal and spiritual development practices. In evolutionary hypnosis or spiritual hypnosis, we slow down the brain waves to create coherence with the heart. This practice allows us to feel more effectively the connection with our deepest being, to touch this mystical marriage between consciousness and matter. Through this experience, perception improves, which promotes a better understanding of the universal couple. This connection between our inner self and our higher self brings to light our strengths, our weaknesses, our deepest aspirations, and our true essence. The concept of the universal couple allows us to dive into the essence of our being, to discover our true uniqueness and to understand our place in the world. It offers a real opportunity for us to explore our potential, to achieve personal growth and deep spiritual transformation.
The Girl Power Message,
a revolution for gender equality. Nowadays, the girl power message is more and more present in the media and social networks. It advocates the emancipation of women and encourages women to be independent, confident, and ambitious. This movement was born as a reaction to a patriarchal society where women were often confined to traditional roles such as caring for the home and children. This girl power message aims to restore a fair balance in society and promote gender equality. Women are encouraged to work, pursue their dreams, and take up leadership positions in all sectors, including politics and business. In this way, they can be financially empowered and independent in their lives. However, it is important to note that the message of the perfect woman is also present in society. The media and social networks often show images of young, perfect women who are slim, beautiful, and have sculptural bodies. This image can be harmful to women who do not fit these standards, making them feel bad about themselves and/or inducing eating disorders. The girl power movement must remain vigilant against this image of the perfect woman and continue to promote diversity and self-acceptance. Women of all shapes, sizes, and colors must be represented and valued in the media. Finally, social media can also help promote the girl power message, but it is important not to use it as a marketing strategy to sell products. Brands must truly support women's rights and empowerment to keep the girl power message sincere and authentic.
The harmony between love, nature, and the female body. The relationship between love, nature, and the female body. He begins by stating that love is synonymous with life, no matter how pure it is. Then he mentions lunar energies, symbolizing the sweetness of the feminine and the connection with the earth. By emphasizing the importance of nature, the text encourages us to take advantage of its benefits for the body, especially for women. Thus, the text establishes a subtle link between nature, femininity, and love, a message that reminds us of the importance of living in harmony with ourselves and nature.
The heart path, a path to compassion. In many spiritual and philosophical traditions, we find the notion of the heart path, which is about nurturing an inseparable link between emotion and reflection. In other words, it is about seeking to align our choices and actions with our deep values of compassion and caring, while being vigilant about guarding our hearts so that our desires reflect something greater than ourselves. The heart path therefore involves working on ourselves to cultivate kindness and love for ourselves and others, as well as thinking deeply about the implications of our choices and their consequences on the world around us. It also invites a certain humility, recognizing that our desires and impulses are not always in line with our highest values. Through this vocation to compassion and benevolence, the heart path offers a path to a more fulfilling life, where the satisfaction of our personal desires is tempered by a concern for the collective well-being. It also commits us to remain attentive to our heart and emotions, so as not to lose sight of the deeper meaning of our existence.
The heart, ground zero of eternal love. The close relationship between the heart and our biorhythm is undeniable. It is what unites us to each other, beyond time and space. In the heart there is a special junction point, known as point zero. This special connection links us to eternity, giving love its title of nobility. The heart, like a metronome, guides our lives. It rhythms our beats, our emotions, and consequently, our way of loving. The 0 point is then a reference point, a base, an anchor point that allows us to connect to what is timeless. It is the seat of an unconditional and eternal love, which goes beyond the limitations of time and space. This connection to ground zero is vital for the development of the human being. It allows one to tap into a pure and authentic love that knows no boundaries. Far from conditions and judgments, this eternal love is the source of the nobility of human love. In conclusion, the heart is much more than a simple organ. It is the seat of life, emotion, and love. The 0 point in it is the symbol of this timeless connection, which gives love its nobility and allows it to shine beyond the boundaries of time and space.
The historical origins of Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is a very popular holiday around the world. It is often associated with romance, love, and passion. However, few people know the true origins of this holiday. In fact, Valentine's Day was artificially created by the Catholic Church to counteract the ancient pagan holidays that were celebrated throughout Europe. Originally, these holidays had nothing to do with romance, love or passion. We will explore the historical roots of Valentine's Day and discover how it became such an important holiday for lovers. We will see how this holiday has evolved over the centuries and how it has become the celebration of love that we know today. By examining the ancient traditions that gave birth to Valentine's Day, we will gain a better understanding of the importance of this holiday to our culture and society. We will see how this holiday is celebrated in different parts of the world and how it has evolved over the years to become a universal celebration of love and romance. Ultimately, this video will help us understand why Valentine's Day is such a cherished holiday and why it is so important to lovers around the world.
The ideal of a love partner. In our lives, there is often a growing hope of finding the ideal partner to share a love path. We all have expectations and dreams, ambitions that vary from person to person. For some, the ideal is to find someone who shares their passion for nature, adventure and discovery, while for others, gentleness, patience and stability are more important. Beyond principles and values, there is compatibility, that mysterious alchemy that makes two people feel in sync. How do we know if our partner is ideal? The answer is simple, we just have to feel how we feel in his presence. If our partner calms us, reassures us, inspires us, enlightens us and we feel an inner calm, then there is a good chance that we have found our ideal partner. However, finding the ideal love partner is not always easy and it can take time. We are not immune to false starts and disappointments. Sometimes people who seemed ideal disappoint us. In this case, it is advisable to keep hope and self-confidence to find and meet the right person. Why not take advantage of this period to get to know yourself and to love yourself, in order to better open yourself to a fulfilling love relationship? The ideal of a love partner pushes us to search for balance and harmony. It's about finding that person whose presence makes us feel better and who makes us feel fulfilled. The ideal partner is the one who is able to listen to us, understand us and support us. He accompanies us in our evolution and loves us for what we are, with our qualities and our defects.
The illusion of time. Time is often presented as a salvific remedy to heal our wounds. But the reality is different. Time does not heal anything, it only makes the waiting interminable. Days pass, weeks go by, months and years go by, but the pain persists. Time gives us the impression that things will get better, that everything will eventually return to normal. But often this is an illusion. Life is an eternal cycle of ups and downs, joys and sorrows. Every day we face new challenges, new trials. But the only constant that remains is love. Loving and being loved is the key to getting through the tough times. Love is the light that guides us through the darkness. It is important not to lose hope when time drags on. Wounds do heal, but it may take longer than expected. In these moments, we need to remember that every day is enough to love. To love our family, our friends, our loved ones. To love life, despite its imperfections and trials. To love, simply, even if it doesn't translate into a quick healing of our wounds.
The illusions of love, between cognitive bias and scientific uncertainty. The text explores two concepts related to the way we perceive love. First, the author mentions the halo effect, a cognitive bias that leads us to extrapolate a positive characteristic to the whole of a person or a situation, creating a form of illusion. The article then proposes to consider the Barnum effect, which consists in recognizing oneself in general or vague descriptions, and which can also reinforce feelings of illusion or mystery. The author then points out that Amourology, whether it is a science or a pseudoscience, is not able to prove that love is real. Love remains a complex concept, which varies according to people and relationships, and remains subject to uncertainties and doubts. I invite you to approach love with humility and realism, without trying to reduce it to stereotypes or generalities, and by accepting the uncertainty that is linked to it.
The imbalance between male and female energy in men. Male energy, often associated with strength, dominance and action, can cause an imbalance with female energy, which is often related to sensitivity, intuition and empathy. In men in particular, this masculine energy can be predominant, which can lead to a suppression of the feminine energy, creating an imbalance. This imbalance can manifest itself in many ways, such as difficulty expressing emotions, lack of empathy towards others, need to control situations, aggressiveness and impulsiveness. In addition, it can also affect relationships with others, especially with women, where men may have difficulty understanding their own emotions as well as those of their partner. However, it is important to note that these mechanisms are often unconscious, making it difficult for men to recognize and deal with them. Therefore, it is essential to develop emotional awareness in order to be more in tune with one's own body and emotions, while learning to listen to others. Ultimately, it is important to find a balance between masculine and feminine energy to be a more complete person and to develop more fulfilling relationships with others.
The impact of dating sites on morals and the rise of incel communities. Since the advent of dating sites, relationships have undergone profound changes. Single people can now meet new partners online, which has created a revolution in the field of dating. However, this development has not been without consequences. It has contributed to the emergence of communities of incels, or involuntary singles, who have difficulty finding a partner, and live in great solitude. These communities, mostly male, have become places of expression of misogyny and violence against women. The incel has thus become the archetype of the unhappy, desperate and frustrated bachelor, who harbors a growing resentment towards women. This frustration can sometimes lead to extreme acts of violence, as tragic events have unfortunately shown. In this context, different movements have emerged to try to deal with these dangerous phenomena. One can notably mention feminism, which fights for gender equality, but also masculinism, which seeks to defend the rights of men. However, these movements often have diametrically opposed visions and can lead to conflicts, or even to a real fratricidal war. It is important to emphasize that the development of dating sites is not the cause of the rise of incel communities. Rather, this trend reflects a broader and deeper evolution of society, where loneliness, social isolation and psychological suffering are more and more frequent. It is therefore imperative to act to help these suffering people, and prevent all forms of gender-based violence,